Good morning, friends. Good morning, nations. Good morning, the house of CCI. Wonderful to be with you in these mornings. And these days, we're talking about inside the veil. We're pulling a couple of thoughts out of Hebrews chapter 6, where it says there's two things that go all the way into the veil, and they're anchor for our souls. The first thing is that God can't lie. So in Genesis chapter 15, the Lord has promised Abraham he'll have a son. And so he's promised, and then he also promised that he will have it. This son will be an heir and heir of the land. And so in this context, Abraham, and the Bible says, Abraham believed the promise of God. But then something really exciting happens, and so Abraham says, how will I know I will inherit it? And what an interesting thought. Because some scholars would say he's trying to push God into going to another level. In other words, he's trying to push God beyond promise into covenant. Could be, that's true. Certainly seems like it. It may not be. But either way, he does ask the question, how will I know? And he's already believed God that the promise is true. It's kind of like he's saying this to see what happens. And so God says, get some animals. So he gets some animals. And in the old world, when they're going to make covenant, what they do is they bring some animals together and they kill the animals and they cut them in two from top to bottom. And so these animals are cut in two and they're opened up and their bodies are laid there, half here, half here, half here, half here. And so then the people who are going to make covenant will stand between these animals. And as they stand between these animals, they begin to recite or say the things that they're making covenant about. Often these would be defense covenants. And so they would stand in front in the animals, between the animals, and they would say, we make a covenant with you that we will defend you. We will defend you when you need it with what we have. So then the other people would say something similar. We will defend you with when you need it and what we have. And then that might be a provision covenant. If we run out of food, and we will provide for you when you need it with what we have. And the others would say the same thing. But after they would say the articles of the covenant, then they would say something like this. And if we would ever not fulfill our covenant with you, let us be like these animals who've been strewn on the ground. You may take the most precious thing we have, our lives, cut it in two, expose us to the fowls of the air, to the buzzards and everything else, take our most precious parts of who we are and expose them. And so this is what is in the process of happening. So Abram cuts the animals in two. As he cuts the animals in two, the Bible says the buzzards, the fowls of the air, came and tried to take his sacrifice or take the animals, eat the animals. And so Abraham himself had to shoo the animals away. And we believe that these animals and their death symbolizes Christ, and that these, just like the fowls of the air in other passages of the Bible, are negative. It looks like they're negative here, obviously, as well. And so Abraham will not let them get a hold of what he is about to take place in. He already has the promise, but now it's going to a different level. It's going to covenant. Now, this is very much, we see this in Exodus chapter 3, in the sense of what are they reciting as they're standing between these animals. So as they stand between the animals, they're basically saying this: we will be who you need us to be when you need us to be it. And if we will not be who you need us to be when you need us to be it, then we've broken the covenant, and you can take our most precious lives and shed them on the ground in this way. Wow, covenant breaking is a very powerful thing. A promise brings your life into question, but a promise brings your character into question, but a covenant brings your life into question. So this is a very difficult moment. Why? It's wonderful if you can keep the covenant, but if you can't keep the covenant, this could be very, very difficult. We'll talk more about this, but this is the beginning of understanding grace as we walk through this together. Hey, I'm excited. I know you are. This is something very powerful. Share this with your friends because these are the keys that begin to open it up, and it goes wild after this. Bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.